Oops, there's the splashes. Don't want those. Go away. Hey folks, it's me, John, and today we're going to talk about a very important subject, which is paintcrastination. Pretty sure it's normally what painting procrastination, but I like the title that I just gave it, so we're going to go with that. So basically, when you're starting off the new year, we're gung-ho about things. We say, okay, I made my resolution, I'm going to paint a whole bunch of models, and then at some point throughout the year, it kind of just sort of fades away. Or you don't make your resolution to begin the new year strong, and then you kind of lose it as you're going. And we don't want that. What we want to happen is we want to maintain a steady pace for our painting. So there's some tips and tricks that we're going to use to do that. So the number one problem that we have is basically life gets in our way. We start, school happens, or we start a new job, or we try to get a second job so we can get some more money for more models, and then before you know it, you're too busy. The number one thing that gets in the way of the painting is life. The number one way to get around that, so to speak, so that you have more time just putting paint on the figures is preparation. The number one thing you can do to beat paintcrastination is preparation. So what do I mean by when I say preparation? Very simply put, I, for the most part, never had an organized space that I had to paint my stuff. I would put everything up when I was done with it, and then when I needed it, I would end up going over to my my shelf. I would grab a couple of paints that I wanted to put on the figure, and then I would grab my wet palette, and then I would grab the figures I wanted to work on that evening. That's nice, but it doesn't lend itself to easy access when I need it and I don't have a lot of time. So when we're busy with life, we're tired, we don't want to make a whole lot of like conscious decisions when we're going to paint. And oftentimes you're going to be painting when it's late at night, after work. We don't typically paint early in the morning. I'm not a morning person, so I definitely prefer doing a little bit of painting to relax before I go to bed. And if you don't have your space properly organized, it's basically you're just going to suffer for it. You're going to end up slowing down your process, and by slowing down the process of the little things like having to go get another paint, or you might have all your paint there, and you know your setup is there, but you forget things like getting a water, or I'm thirsty, I'm going to go upstairs and get a coffee, or whatever it is. So I'm going to show you real quick what my desk is organized like, and the question of the day for y'all is, if you can, I'm not sure you can put it during a live stream, but send photos of how you organize your desk space if it's very efficient. So when we're thinking about organizing it, we're cutting down on the thought that goes into all these little different things. You should really just be able to have your brushes, have your different cleaning stuff for the brushes, so water, the soaps or whatever you want to use to clean it with. Have all that stuff ready. Have plenty of towels, or if you use paper towels or napkins or whatever you end up using to dry the brushes off and get the paint off the brushes. Have all that stuff kind of ready and there. So I'm going to switch over now with the handy dandy studio software. Here we go. And get some light on. I'm going to switch around my microphone. So here. There we go. Beautiful. Let's look at here. So what I did is I have a whole bunch of chaos. So this is about 1,600 points worth of chaos boys, and they're beautiful. I got my Chaos Terminator Sorcerer right there. Just primed him today. I have a converted Chaos Lord, which I put one of the Terminator Lord heads on, so he looks pretty cool. I took off a couple of the tusks, and I converted a couple other things, so basically each of my squads looks a little bit different. So in terms of my organization, I've got my different glues, and so I have the plastic glues, I've got super glue, I've got my nail filer, I even have this beautiful purple Slaneshi nail filer that I have, and that one is for getting those little mold lines down, the very fine ones, not for the major mold lines. Then I have my beautiful paint thing that I got. Oh, turn it a little bit to the left here. There we go. Beautiful paint holder for the brushes, very useful. And I've organized my paints already somewhat throughout the color wheel. So I've got all my washes on the left, very easy to get to. Also, like things like the secret weapon decal stuff we sell at Giga-Bites Cafe. We got the purple paints Over here, we go toward the browns and tans. Lots of dust. I do a lot of desert theme stuff, or just brown tones in general. Then we have red, green, yellow, blue, onward to metals on the right-hand side. Everything that I do that's metal-related, I do on the right. So there's golds, there's silvers, any sort of steel that I have. None of my washes are over there. I keep all my washes over here. Also, the washes are in a good spot where if they fall off, they're not going to wreck my models. They're fairly far away from all these models. Super important because I've recently spilled my Nuln oil on a carpet. So I have this, it's near an old couch, which I don't really care about. Don't need the couch. Now, in terms of organizing your figures, here's how I like to do it. I like to batch process everything in groups according to their squads if you have them available. If you don't, so like here, I go ahead and organize them into squads. So I have 60 Chaos Cultists over here. It's quite a bit. Then I have, I want to say, 18-something Chosen. That's a pain in the butt. 3 Chaos Lords, 2 Exalted Champions, Sorcerer Lord here. Not to mention the other Hellbrutes. I have this Hellbrute and 2 more Hellbrutes. Quite a bit at once. So what I do is I'm basically going to be processing each of these things at once. So I'm going to do the 2 Exalted Champions pretty quickly, move on to the Chaos Lord, and then the Sorcerer Lord. When you're doing your batches, once you've got it all organized, give them a name. Something that you can say, okay, this squad is Dusty Squad, or I don't even know what the heck you'd say. So like this champion here, I've converted him to have a cool possessed kind of sword. And I'll get to your comments in a second when I can read them. I'm not near the computer screen, so I can't read them. But basically, I give them a name, and then I'm going to put them over on my shelf. All you're going to do with your workspace is have, I'd say, 2 to 3 squads, because I'm a little bit ADD sometimes. I go to one thing, paint it up a little bit, then I move on to the next, and that's okay. It's not the most efficient thing, but if you're, depending on personality, might work. But all of these extra things will go on. They'll already be organized by their groups. So, for instance, I've already looked at my Battlescribe file, and then backed that up with the codex when I verified all the numbers and everything. So I know exactly that all 3 of these groups are equal. And for me, that's easy to organize and bookkeep when I'm playing the game. Then all these 3 groups are also equal. So when I paint them, I can choose different variations on a theme. And so as you can see here, I've done a couple of the models that have already... you can't really set it under Giga. Hi, Giga-kun. Ah, yay. Let me turn that. There we go. I've already done a couple of the models, and this is going to be the theme for that squad. So this squad, for instance, is going to be heavily pink, although my hand is bright white there. This one is pink, very Slaneshi based. And then some of the other squads are going to be more brown, more desert. This squad right here is going to be a little more steel based, so they'll be heavy on the steel, darker steel color. I have this cool model, which I have a project I'm going to be working on for y'all to entertain you with fun videos. This guy has a book that I converted, so he's holding out and preaching the good word of Slanesh. Gotta love it. So each of these squads will have a different theme, and that is really going to help you when you're going to grab that one. Go ahead and paint a couple of your models. The classic example of, you know, painting a couple of them to get the color scheme right. Do that for each subset. So if you want variations for a squad, for one thing, it's going to make it much easier to organize when you're playing, because when you have your colors like here, this squad is all going to be brighter on the top and darker on the bottom. That whole squad's going to be that way. That's just going to be super easy for me to pick them up off the table and organize them into that squad. Same thing with the guys on the right-hand side. Character's not so important, but super important for those guys. So once you've done that and you've done your individual leader models and make sure they're all similar but different, they fit your color themes, but you've got enough variation that you like, you can obviously mix and match. But for me, having a solid, consistent theme per squad really helps me organize things later on. And it's a little more fun to paint because I say, oh, I'll just paint the tops on all these guys the same. So when you're doing things such as dust, you will have vehicles, you'll have your infantry, etc. When you paint in your batches, I prefer to paint almost all my base coats at once, but leave the details out. So to give you a perfect example, my test model for this squad is the flamethrower dude, got the Molotov cocktail. I went ahead and did him up completely. So base, wash, highlight, done. And then these next ones, I basically have done just the base coat, except for some details like the face. So I went ahead and did the base coat on him, made sure that this whole squad looks pretty good. And then for this army, since it's Russians, I don't really care about them all looking, you know, different. So I pretty much have them all in the same gray with red armor, and that's fine with me. I haven't done the bases perfectly for all of these, because for some of them I'm considering having a different color. So for this rifle squad, they may have a red base on the bottom just to differentiate themselves a little easier, since they all have the same theme. But with these guys, they're pretty much done. And I'm actually going to keep this gray on here except for the leader. The leader of the squad will have a black base, and the rest of them will have gray. But whatever your option for organization is, just keep it consistent and make sure that it's a speedy process that you don't have to think as much about, because the more thought you have, the slower you're going to be. And the slower you're going to think about things, that just makes you tired. So let me go back to my talking in person so I can read these comments that you guys have, because you've got some stuff written down here, I see. So give me a second. Move back over. Switch the lights. Woohoo! Oh, and that just went to my ceiling. That's okay. Bam. Look at that. All right. The light is way too bright. Yes, okay. Sorry about that, Ross. So when I was testing it earlier, the settings mess up between the two webcams. They're both Logitech, so their settings sometimes go haywire. I think it reset to its default, so I apologize about that. Mitchell says, have no job. Yes, but you can still get a lot of painting done with jobs. Quite a few people work long hours, but even if you're painting for 15 minutes, oftentimes I notice that I actually get a lot done if I just say, screw it, I'm just going to paint for 15 minutes and see what I can do. Then before you know it, I've base coated or I've put shades on everything. When you're time limited, the best thing you can do is A, not worry about the details. I know, I don't want to get, torched by somebody for being a heretic, but if you're not worried about the details, like every single thing being perfectly, exactly right for every single one of your models, then you can worry more about the overall feel of the model. You can start thinking about how the paints are interacting, how the colors are interacting, the values of the different paints, from the darks to the lights, the different types of contrasts and stuff. And then you can have an overall good feeling model that might not hold up to perfect inspection if someone says, oh my gosh, you forgot the belt buckle on his left foot. Okay, I forgot the left belt buckle, but it's a cool feeling model. I'll give you a perfect example. I have an elf sorcerer over there that I actually did several streams about. I probably spent a total of an hour and a half on the actual model. I spent probably half an hour to 45 minutes on the base, but the actual model itself looks fine. There's some details that I could probably fill in later, but overall, for me, for tabletop quality, it looks fine. And at most, I spent about an hour and a half on that, between basing, getting the details on, putting a couple of highlights on there, but the model didn't need a whole lot of highlighting done. So when you have limited time, batch everything in small groups. I say, 5-10 models tops in your group. Do your base coats, get the washes. I often can do a base coat and wash, and I'll go ahead and wash the big areas. So if you've got this Chaos Bro, grab him, this one with the cloak here. Where is he? There he is. Okay. So he's got a cloak and a bunch of robes. That is super easy to go ahead and paint that on and then put a wash on there, and you can highlight it later. I think I can get this thing base coated in about 2 minutes. And it's a little bit messy. If you're the type that needs to be a clean painter, power to you. I don't want to... It's a hobby. I'm just giving some recommendations. But if you're the type like me that you ultimately just need to get the paint on there and you'll clean it up later, slather it on, so to speak, not too thick, too thin coats like Duncan says. You can always go back and then redo the base coat process before you put your washes on. So I will literally base coat, especially because a lot of my colors are kind of desert. They don't go on black perfectly well. So put them on, put that one down. Next, 2 minutes tops on this one. Next, 10 minutes. I've already put a base coat on 5 to 10 models, and I'm ready to shade. And shading takes... For me, it takes like no time at all. So yeah, that's overall how you beat paintcrastination, right? So you process everything into no brain thought taken, right? You might take some time with an individual model to figure out how you want to do a paint scheme, but there should be less time thinking about everything that you're doing constantly and more time just getting the paint on. In terms of the psychological process that's behind it, basically in psychology with human habits, the easiest thing to do is often the best. And what I mean by that is the sooner you can do easy things, then it kind of piles on top. You feel momentum going. Find the easiest models that you can and start painting them. So for me, it's things that have large surfaces like capes, etc., and not too many details, right? So this guy's a perfect example. He's got the hood and the skirt and everything. That's great, because that means I just throw that one color on there and go to town. Do the easiest things first, and then save the harder things for later. That's why I like to save my detailing for later. Ross, you wish you had that much workspace. It warms up your hands. Yeah, it's 9-10 degrees here, and in this basement, it's like, I want to say it's 50-something, so I'm a little bit cold myself. I feel your pain. But yeah, that's how you do it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this stream. Put in the comments your tips for how you like to beat paintcrastination. What are the things that really have helped you in your weeks, months, years, decades, however long you've been painting? What are the things that you've noticed afterwards? You've said, huh, I just realized that I did the most models when X, and then just put that in the comments so that we can learn from y'all as well. I'm not a master of painting. My painting looks all right. It's great. I enjoy it. But I'm actually getting better as I get faster. So I'm spending less time thinking about what color I'm going to be putting on a buckle, and more time just saying, all right, well, his overall feel is going to be brown, and then I go from there. Hope you guys have enjoyed this stream. I'm John Caspian. We are at Giga-Bites Cafe all the time. Starts at noon. On a weekday, we end at 11 p.m. The store closes at 11 p.m. On Friday night, it closes closer to 1 a.m., depending on if we have large groups in and stuff. We have our Friday night fights that are happening. This Thursday, we have Warzone Resurrection Demo Day with CW, so he's going to be there starting around 6, maybe a little bit earlier as well. If you haven't ever played Warzone Resurrection, that's a good one. Small scale, so fewer models, typically anywhere between 10 and 30 models, unlike Warhammer, which is so good. So many models to paint. It's beautiful. And then Friday night fights for 40K. We have a whole bunch of stuff going on for Magic. We'll talk about some of the events that are coming up. If you want to sign up for things, you can go to playatgiga.com to sign up for paid events. That's the easiest way to do that. If they're free events, find it on our Facebook page and then click going and then go. If you want to also beat paintcrastination, play with your models, and then your friends can shame you when you don't have painted models. And we hear it all the time. How could you bring those black or gray abominations? But anyway, thanks y'all. I'm John. We will see y'all next time for our next stream, and have a great day. Bye.